Welcome to the Loadout Music Podcast, featuring intimate conversations with emerging and established musicians, recorded at the Gaslight Studios in St. Louis. And now your host, Aaron Perlett. Welcome back to another episode of the Loadout Music Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Perlett. And as always, we are presented by Shinesty and Wellbeing Brewing. And today, we have a special treat. We are coming to you from a studio outside Gaslight. We're actually in the studio with the band Lucas Jack. Let me have the guys introduce themselves to you. Lucas?
I am Lucas Jack, eponymous band member.
I'm the bass player, Justin Schneider.
My name is Mike Gomez, and I play drums for Lucas Jack.
Guys, I'm so glad we could do this today. Not only are we going to have a great conversation, but also a couple great performances that I'm really looking forward to. Lucas, talk about kind of, we always like to begin with your journey in music and where it began. And I know, you grew up in the upper Midwest in Michigan. What was your kind of entry point into music?
I started playing music just as a really little kid, playing the piano in my house. Played in pianos in church. A lot of it was church-based. A lot of musicians are that way. But I mostly just started tinkering around on the piano at church, and then people would watch me, and that was very exciting to have people, like an audience. My first audience, and I was hooked. But it was mostly just, I took piano lessons and played in church, and that was most of it.
You tend to find that a lot of musicians get their first connectivity with music in church. I've interviewed a ton of different musicians that said that's where they first kind of got into either singing or playing piano in church. Justin, what about you?
It was actually a pretty similar experience for me. Both my parents were in the church band. And so I was there early every Sunday morning. I was there for, Wednesday rehearsals and stuff, little kid. And, it was Catholic, so it wasn't anything super exciting, but I was around music constantly. So my mom played piano, my dad played guitar, my mom sang. And so, being around it from such a young age, I eventually, around 8 years old, just sort of started messing with the piano on my own. And by the time I got to middle school, I was wanting to be in band and do all this stuff. And then it just snowballed from there.
And I know you guys ultimately met in Texas, but where are you originally from?
I'm originally born and raised in San Antonio.
Okay. Mike, what about you? And where did you start with music?
Really, my musical experience began in middle school. A couple years before that, I knew that I liked the drums as like a 10-year-old. And the first chance I really had to, the first opportunity was to sign up for the school band. And I was like, great, we get to play drums, sign me up. And
just beat on shit.
Just beat on. Yes, all day. And went sixth grade all the way through college, studying music. And I just knew, I tell people I feel lucky because at a very young age, 9 or 10, I just knew I wanted to play drums for a job. And I had the parents to support me and not freak out, but that's where I started. And
are you also a Texas native?
Yes, I was born in Harlingen, Texas. I'm from the Rio Grande Valley, and it's right near South Padre Island, Matamoros, Mexico, so way down.
Luke, you grew up in Michigan. You ultimately found your way to Chicago. But I imagine, growing up, once you got beyond playing piano and singing in church, that you probably played in, bands with friends, high school, college, things like that, right?
I played in piano bars in high school. I had jobs. I never had a band. I did a lot of, again, like worship bands, stuff like that. But I played in like dueling piano bars and wine bars and open mics and stuff like that in high school. And in college, I was hired by the college to like play during brunches and different events and stuff like that. But I didn't form a band really at all until I moved to Chicago.
I'm often pretty amazed by like dueling piano bands because the volume of songs you have to learn seems to me to be pretty remarkable. Like just cover songs, you've got to be able to. People are screaming at you like, "Hey, play Air Supply," and you're like, "Shut up!" But no, I'll play Billy Joel. But I mean, is that, how hard is that?
You know what? You just turn every song into the same song. It's because you see most songs only have this number of chords, and if you don't really know the song, just 1, 5, 6, 4 over and over and over again. You just simplify everything so much. You don't play a bridge of any song. Never play the bridge. The bridge doesn't matter, just because you're trying to get to the next request. So every song is 2 minutes long. Play what you know. Repeat the first verse if you have to. But we had lots of lyrics everywhere, and now they have iPods or iPads with all the lyrics to every song. So it's easy. I think it's easier now. But yeah, the demanding drunk bachelorettes are one thing to deal with. But it was a really fun way to trial by fire, having people scream at you and get mad at you and I gave you $100. When are you gonna blah blah blah? But it was a good experience.
So you mentioned you didn't join your first band until you moved to Chicago, and that is when I first came across you, you were playing with this band called the Flavor Savers that I have always told people I compared to a hybrid of the Beastie Boys, the Village People, and Tenacious D, somewhere in that pocket.
Those are all 100% accurate. Yeah.
But you guys played, kind of EDM-driven music. It had, it was very humorous. It was more performance art than anything else. Would you agree?
Music was the last thing that mattered in the band, as far as the costumes, the setting, the story. The order of set list, and then we guess we have to play these songs too. That was it. It was just a party band. We had so much fun. If the band has a lot of fun, people in the audience are going to have fun, and they're just going to feed off of that. It just became a party. People loved to come to the shows because it was ridiculous, and the hijinks were ridiculous. And we do all kinds of pretend. We throw stuffed animals all over the place at people. We dress up like birds and hand out feathers. It was just ridiculous.
Extraterrestrial sex, part of it.
It was a very sensual band.
Yeah. So, like most working musicians, you also had a real job. You were working as an attorney, right?
I was.
And you loved doing that? Loved it?
I didn't love it. But you know what? I did not really mind it that much. It was fine. I definitely had friends that I hate my life. I hate my job. Why did I do this? I have all this debt. And I didn't. That really wasn't me. I just thought, man, I don't really want to do this. But it wasn't as bad. I didn't really mind it. I just get tired of putting people through bankruptcies.
But you reached a point, I imagine, where you said to yourself, what do I want to do with the rest of my life?
Yeah, I definitely just didn't want to keep being an attorney. I was like, I got to either get really good at this and find a bunch of clients, or I got to do something else because I'm not very passionate about it. So I did that. I met my wife at a Flavor Saver show that you hosted.
I was there when you met her. Yes.
Yes, you are the reason for my being here in St. Louis. And anyway, I met my wife there, and a year later we were married and living in Texas. And a year after that, I met Mike and started playing music. So I didn't even know what I was going to do when I moved to Texas.
But was part of that period where you're saying to yourself, okay, I don't want to be an attorney full time. Was it also that, you said that the music came last with the Flavor Savers. Was it that you had this passion for music and it was something that you wanted to really put at the forefront of your life, that you wanted to make a serious endeavor out of, that you wanted to focus your talents and bring out more than you had been able to either develop or just demonstrate in playing with a band that was a great party band?
I had another band before the Flavor Savers called Bright Work, and I sang in a punk band for a while, and that was not a good fit. Shocking. Very cool guys. We played some fun shows, but so I was in some bands that I wrote the music for and thought that was pretty cool. But it didn't really have the players to play the music. It's so important. These guys are so good. Playing with these guys, it makes the music so much better. You play with some people that aren't good, and your songs sound terrible. But then I joined the Flavor Savers, and those bands kind of fell apart, those earlier bands. And then I joined the Flavor Savers, and then they're like, the music doesn't matter. We're just having fun and partying, and music matters a little bit. But I didn't really have any aspirations to do anything with music. I just played all the time in my apartment and wrote songs and was really into it. I didn't really consider it. I didn't think I could do it the rest of my life as a career. And then I got a roommate right before I met Julie. I got a roommate, and he was a professional musician, Craigslist roommate. And he played music, toured around, and he was super good. And he inspired me. I thought, I could do this. He's doing it. I could do this. And
That guy sucks. I'm better than him.
no, he's very good. His name is Alex Mariel. He's excellent. But he kind of showed me that you could do that as a career. And then I met my wife and moved to Texas. And when I moved to Texas, either I had to take the bar in Texas and start over and find an attorney job, or I could just try to make a career out of music. And Julie had met me as a musician in a ridiculous band in an outfit with a fake mustache and a red cowboy hat, And so I thought, well, she already thinks that I'm a musician, so maybe I could just kind of sneak that in as the rest of my life and do that. And I don't know, she's been cool with it so far.
All right, we're going to hear our first performance from the guys. Lucas, what is this first song we're going to hear?
This song is called Dear Life, and it's a new song. It's on our new album, which we haven't released, but it's kind of a little dancier song.
Okay, here's Dear Life by Lucas Jack. Hey, this is Aaron Perlett, and for those who've been listening, know that Well-Being Brewing is pretty much my favorite drink in the world because I quit drinking alcohol a couple years ago and discovered Well-Being, and it really has been my salvation. I am fortunate to be joined by Jeff Stevens, who is the founder and CEO of Well-Being. Jeff, first of all, thank you so much for being a partner with The Loadout, and tell us about, this is such a unique non-alcoholic beer because it actually tastes like
great beer.
Yeah. Well, thank you for saying that, because that's the most important thing for us. We invested a lot of money into figuring out how to make great non-alcoholic craft beer, and that was something that I was really interested in. And to have someone like you say, you know what, I can drink this beer and do all the things that I would normally do and don't miss a thing, that makes it all, so great for us.
And it is a craft beer. I mean, I was from the time I was probably 14 or 15, I was a drinker until the time I was about 47.
Yeah.
And I have always been a beer guy, beer and bourbon. And I especially got into more flavorful beers over the past 10 years. But Well-Being, whether it's the Hellraiser Amber or the Well-Being, and you've actually got, or the IPA rather, and you've got a pretty nice group of growing products.
Yeah.
That are pretty impressive. But what's the secret to? I mean, when you compare it to some of the other more watered down imitators, what's the secret to making it so good?
Yeah, there's several ways you can make non-alcoholic beer, and we chose this way called vacuum distillation. So what it allows us to do, and this is the thing that comes through, is we fully ferment the beer. We make it just like you'd normally make alcohol beer. So it's ready to be alcohol beer, and then we take it, put it in a vacuum, lower the boiling point of the beer, and gently remove the alcohol. So what you're left with is all the mouthfeel and the flavor of beer without the alcohol. And I think that's where our products are distinct, is that mouthfeel, that aroma, that flavor that really comes through, versus you can stop the fermentation. That's another method. And those are a little more watery, I think, or just don't quite hold up as well, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for being a partner. If you want to sample Well-Being, you can go to wellbeingbrewing.com and use the code LOADOUT10. LOADOUT10 at checkout, and you will get a discount on Well-Being from being a Loadout listener. Jeff, thank you so much for being a partner, and thank you so much for making this amazing product.
Aaron, my pleasure. Thank you for drinking it.
And we're back with Lucas Jack. So before the break, and by the way, that was a fantastic song, Dear Life. And when will that be coming out? You said it hasn't been released yet.
We're trying to figure out how to release it, and we want to get some album support record support from a record label, and if those even exist anymore after 2021. So we're just kind of sitting on it, waiting to release it. It's very complicated to release new music, because once you release it, it's got a date stamp on it, and you can't. And 3 months later, it's old news.
Shelf life,
It's a shelf life is tiny.
You mean you can't be like Big Head Todd and put Bittersweet on like 38 different albums? Can't do that? Okay. Anymore?
Big Head Todd and the Monsters?
Yeah, Big Head Todd and the Monsters. That song Bittersweet, I think it was on 3 or 4 different albums by them, but it's a great song. I think they were like, it's going to hit eventually, so they just kept putting on records. But
Keep putting it on.
Just re-release all the old stuff.
Yeah, I don't. And so it's unreleased.
so undecided.
I'm not sure how we're going to release it yet.
Okay. So you moved to Texas with your wife, and how do you guys connect? Where does that happen?
Well, it's before I met Mike, you two knew each other. Why don't you take that away?
Yeah, so Justin and I go way back, about 2003, 2002.
2003.
And we met through a mutual friend in college. We went to separate colleges in San Antonio, and we played in a band together, and we just didn't realize it, but our friendship had just begun. And we've played in, probably 8-9 bands, a dozen bands for the last 20 years. And we even packaged ourselves as like a duo. People would ask, "Hey, is that bass player available?"
You're like Muppets. You just kind of go together.
Yeah. Bert and Ernie.
Yeah.
You decide who's who.
So yeah, we met and played music way back, and I think really the only thing that stopped that was when you moved out of the state for a while. You want to elaborate on that?
But you moved to Nashville, didn't you, for a while, and you were playing sessions?
I guess you and I probably played in, at that point, probably like, 6 to 8 different bands together. You had kind of taken off and played with a different band. I had taken off, and I was actually fronting for a little while, playing guitar and keys and singing and stuff. And it was a cover band gig, but it was something to keep me working. And I guess we were playing in a couple bands together. But I had an opportunity. Actually, we were both offered the opportunity to go up to Nashville with with an artist and guitar player that we knew.
Yeah,
and he had plenty of stuff going on in San Antonio. I had just gotten divorced. I had pretty much the opportunity. When's that going to come again? So
My life is over. I must get out of here now.
Well, beyond that, it's like, my most of my family had left town, and so it was just like my friends will still be my friends. I go away, come back, whatever. And so I headed up to Nashville from 2012 through 2015 with what I call my my master's degree in music. I was up there for 4 years, and I learned a lot of stuff. And I guess it was the January, I think, of 2015. I was starting my last year in Nashville. And these guys, I guess, have been playing together for a little bit, and they needed a bass player for a January run down in Texas, and that's my off season up in Nashville. And so I learned all of Lucas's music, and I think I even had charts and stuff. But I played maybe 3-4 gigs with you guys during that 2 weeks or something like
Corpus?
that. I think so. Yeah, it's like down South Texas, and we got along really. Obviously, Gomez and I, long rapport. They had been hanging out for a few years at that point, so it was a pretty easy hang, like right from the get go. And Lucas is like, "Man, would you just move back? I need a bass player like you to come back. And, if you would."
Yeah.
I was like, "Man, I just got this gig. It's a
Baby,
bunch of
come
really
back."
cool, a bunch of really cool opportunities for me to play overseas and stuff." And I was just like, "Let me do this tour. We can revisit here in 11 months." And so, sure enough, my tour comes up, and I didn't get renewed. And they're like, "Come on, come back to." I was like, "Okay."
It was a long 11 months. Come home.
That's when I joined. Was in the I guess January, February of 2016.
Yeah,
I believe so.
Interesting note you made about kind of getting your master's in Nashville. We had John Oates of Hall & Oates on the show, and he has told me on several occasions that he moved to Nashville a couple years ago from Colorado, and he said that when he moved to Nashville that he had to up his musicianship, which I found a remarkable statement coming from him.
Right.
But he was saying that the quality of musicians in Nashville is just unbelievable.
Well, it's a hub. It's like New York, LA. It's like not only are you going to get a whole bunch of dreamers up there, but you're going to get some seriously talented people that are ready to do something and just need the opportunity to do it. And that was the funniest thing about playing Nashville. I'm playing a Broadway bar gig from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And in the middle of the set, I don't know, the lead singer was yelling something at the bar, and one of the bartenders comes walking up and steps on stage and in front of the microphone and just kills this song, just singing. I was just like, even the bartenders in this town can kill it. And I was just like, but that's what they're all doing, is they're all waiting for that opportunity. And when you have such a high level of talent,
Yeah.
It's
Especially when you're playing for all those drunken bridal shower parties that are going on buses right out the door.
You have a high level of talent, and you're in San Antonio or Milwaukee or wherever it might be. It's like you're going to stand out. But when you're in a hub that attracts all those people, it's just yeah, for sure. The level of musicianship is just pretty consistently high, because what are you doing there otherwise?
So you guys meet. This comes together finally.
2016. It's a
2016. And then you're a thing. I've always found it interesting that you don't have a guitarist, whether it's a rhythm guitarist or a lead guitarist. What's what is the thinking beyond that? Is that basically that the piano is the lead?
We just can't find anybody.
it's not because we didn't try. We
Yeah.
tried really hard.
We tried a lot of guitar players, and we've played with some guys who were really good that fit really well, especially guys who recorded on the albums, but they couldn't come play shows with us. And frankly, we weren't making enough money to bring on
Yeah.
a guitarist initially. And then Justin, we tried a lot of guitar players. But then Justin plays this big, huge bass, and he kind of covers a lot of things that a guitar player can cover.
The 98 string bass. So
980 strings.
Yeah,
actually.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we were talking earlier. I've been through the challenges of trying to find a guitarist who can fit in and fit not only chemistry but wants to
Commit.
Commit. And
You
it's
have to be on the same page as far as what your goals are. Musically, you have to be around, interested in the same things, and you have to be able to personality-wise get along. All of those things matter a lot.
musical marriage.
A musical marriage.
Ooh.
I met Mike in maybe 2014 when I released my first album,
When I finally got back to you.
When you finally got
my
back
bad,
to me,
my
after I
bad,
was
dog.
lighting you up, sliding into your instant
You know,
messages or whatever.
quick
they were
story
back
on
then.
that is I had seen this guy at this bar, and I was like, oh my gosh, who is this musician? And it was at 502, and you were doing a solo show.
You're like, his triceps are remarkable.
Yeah, oh my gosh, his arms are beautiful.
Jacked.
And, dude, I was just like, you like captivated this room, right? At this pretty popular music venue in San Antonio, and I was like, this guy is badass. I need to know him. And then life went on, and I went home that night. Little had I known that he had already reached out, or very shortly after, like, hey, reached out through Facebook Messenger, asking if I was available for your album release show.
Mm-hmm.
And I just didn't ever check my Facebook messages, and so by the time I got back, I was like, oh, and then I put two and two together. I was like,
How long
yeah.
did it take you to put two and two together?
Well, it took me
That's that guy.
yeah, it took me a moment. He said, you came as a recommendation from Mac. Will you play the CD release show?" And I told him what I tell everybody: send me the music, I'll listen to it and tell you if I'm the guy for the job, if my heart's in it. And as soon as I heard the music, I was like, oh, I know who this guy is. I just heard this voice the other, like, a few weeks ago. So yeah, that was the funniest thing. I was like, oh man.
And then we had a duo show like 2 or 3 times. We were playing 2, 3, 4 times a week for years until we met Justin.
Yeah.
Until Justin.
You brought me on
I should
like
say.
Wednesdays, and then
Wednesdays and Thursdays.
and then
every-
Thursdays, and then we had some Fridays, and then we're just busy.
Yeah.
So it's interesting though your perspective when you saw Lucas playing, because I mean I have found when I've seen you play live, that is the experience that a lot of people have. They're stunned by your performance. They're stunned by your voice, and
My body is a big part.
well, your body's a huge part of it. But
You can't deny that.
Dad bod.
there's a lot of meat there. There's a lot of things working.
Heft is underrated.
It is underrated. But I don't even know where I'm going now. But the thing is that you work at it. You've talked to me about this before. I mean, from a voice perspective, from a songwriting perspective, I mean, you're kind of a geek when it gets into kind of the nuts and bolts of building your instrument in your voice, your songwriting capabilities, your piano playing. I mean, it's something that you take with exceptional seriousness, right?
It is, but I feel like I'm playing catch up because I'm competing. I went from I quit law at 29, and at the time I quit law, I was very young as a lawyer, and I said I'm going to become a musician. Well, instantly I'm very old for a musician. I went from being like too young to be taken seriously to too old to freaking matter anymore, and now I'm 10 years older than that. But I feel like I'm playing catch up a lot. I didn't get my voice and piano skills didn't get any better after I was probably 12 or 13 years old. I just kind of stuck with the skills I had. It was good enough to get by. I wasn't going to be a professional. So I moved to Texas, and I thought, well, I have to really write some songs that are finished, because I had all kinds of ideas and I never finished them. And I was not as good at the piano as I wanted to be, and my voice didn't have the range that I wanted it to have. So yeah, I did start working really hard on just becoming better. And then to meet cats like this, I'm like, these guys are so much better than me. I just need to be able to like hang slightly in their realm. Otherwise, it's not going to be a good fit. Or players won't play with me if I'm not good enough, which I couldn't play with a click track.
Oh
when I
man,
started.
this guy's time was.
Piano players in general have terrible time because you always play by yourself. You don't often play in a combo or a group. And man, my time was garbage.
Runaway train. I
Runaway.
remember we would play these duo gigs, and we would be playing. And he would look at me like, and we're going faster as he's
Slow me down. Hit the brakes.
The message from your eyeballs was, "We're gonna go faster, and I can't stop it. Just go."
But he reined that in. I reined that in,
Yeah,
and now
together, we
it's
worked
so
it
much
out.
better to not rush constantly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do work at it. I try to take it seriously. And the songwriting stuff, I try to take seriously. And editing, I always tell myself, editing is art. Some people think, well, if I don't just blah 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 the song in 5 minutes, then I don't have it. It's not. You're not like getting a song from some magical place. You're just grinding it out. I mean, it becomes a game of like a crossword puzzle, where you're just trying to fit how many syllables, how does it rhyme, what's the cadence here, and do I want to repeat, it's just kind of a game that you play when you write the song, and then at the end you hopefully end up with something really good. But that's not an art or a craft that I took seriously until I moved to Texas.
Very cool. All right, we're going to hear another song from the band. I believe this is
Send Some Fire Down.
Send Some Fire Down from Lucas Jack. We'll be right back after this song and message from our sponsor.
I'm a slow motion wreck, just as empty as I'm honest, and I'm banging on my chest. I claw at the light like I can see right through the abyss. It's just as empty as a promise, but there's more to love than this. More than scraping at the truth, waiting on you to set the fire down and make me the miracle come back here. They shouldn't have counted out, always faded to break back in, but I'm alone again. Just get me home again, like a broke memory bank, half shattered in the bottle. I've got no one left to blame, but I can tell you about it. Just give me a crowd that's hooked on the heartache, 'cause nothing sells as good as the end. If you're just getting started, I quit yanking at your roots, waiting on you to send some fire down and make me the miracle come back here. They shouldn't have counted out, always faded to break back in. Whoa, you gotta send some fire down, keep me believing that the words won't quit before I'm all out of sound. Oh, the road's so long and lonesome in this cold wind. Here we go again, drifting through the daydreams and drowning through the night. A notebook full of headlines with no real news in sight. Pacing around this basement all night, just listening to a house. I swear it's trying to say something to me, so profound that I can't make it out. So send some fire down, make me the miracle come back here. They shouldn't have counted out, always faded to break back in. Oh, won't you send some fire down? Hey, keep me believing that the words won't quit before I'm all out of sound. Oh, this road's so lonesome. Send some fire down and make me the miracle come back here. They shouldn't have counted out, always faded to break my heart back in. So keep me believing that the words won't quit before I'm all out of sound. Oh, this road's so long and lonesome in this cold wind. I'm alone again, just get me home again. Won't you send some fire down again?
Hey, this is Aaron Perlett. You know what looks better than a 50-year-old moderately overweight man wearing snug-fitting yet amazingly comfortable boxer briefs that look like an American flag with an eagle draped across the front of the crotch? In short, very little. From ball hammocks to bathing suits, from shirts to suits, from pajamas to socks. If you dress like me, and from what I'm seeing on Instagram, you don't, Shinesty.com is your place to shop. So check it out, Shinesty.com, and use the code LOADOUT10. That's LOADOUT and the number 10 at checkout. And we're back with Lucas Jack. That was Sense of Fire Down right before the commercial break. Guys, so we talked about kind of coming together as a unit, this group in 2016. And then you guys became that kind of proverbial touring band, especially in Texas, between San Antonio, Austin, you know, different small towns, anywhere I'm sure you could get a gig. Talk about what that experience was like. I mean, I know it's something that you've all done throughout your careers, but talk about that period of the band's time together.
Sure. So we had some we would play a variety of cities like every probably 6 weeks or so. We'd play in Houston, and San Antonio, and New Braunfels, and Austin,
Greene,
and Bernie, and
Corpus
Christi,
Brownsville,
and Dallas, and Brownsville, and We just kind of hit those places. We would do kind of weekend warrior stuff. Every couple of weeks, we'd go out for 3 or 4 days.
Just hit it.
And just go to this market and that market and this market and that market. And some shows were really good. Some shows were really bad, poorly attended. Some ticketed events, some just bar gigs. We started off playing 3 or 4 hour gigs, Mike and I did, and it was mostly covers because all my original stuff was very slow and kind of sad and didn't really work for a bar crowd that was eating nachos and doing Jaeger bombs. So I learned to play. We were playing Van Halen and Don't Stop Believin' and
Umbrella,
acapella, all these silly songs. And we slowly started, so we got the gigs playing, being kind of like a bar band, cover band, and slowly as I wrote more songs that were up tempo when I started playing with a drummer, we started putting those songs in the set, and slowly it became mostly original with only a few covers. We kind of sneaked our way into these bars because how the music industry works, in my experience, is you get a gig someplace, and if you've played well and they liked you, they'll just always have you back. Once you're in the door, you're in. It's really hard to get a gig at a lot of places, but once you're in, they'll always have you back. And if you killed when you were there, they'll just keep having you back. So I killed with like Elton John and Billy Joel and Journey, and slowly transitioned into all my original stuff. And they're like, yeah, I guess he can still play here, even though no one knows any of this music. But that's the way it was in most of the bars that we played at.
So it's like the way we get our wives. It's that we pretend to be nice guys, and then once we got them hooked, they realize who we really are.
You pretend to be thin
Total
and charming,
slob,
and then
yeah.
you just become like an Xbox guy, like eating chips on the couch.
Same socks for a few weeks. No
So
problem.
you
No problem.
said you were sneaking into some of these bars with the term you used, but there was a time where you kind of snuck into an opportunity to open up for Foreigner. You've talk a little bit about that because I think it's a great story. If you don't mind telling
Yeah,
it.
no, it's fine. So I would watch I would see who's coming to town in San Antonio. They attract a lot of big acts, and I would just kind of see who's coming through town, and I'd try to open for people. That's like the thing that bands do. And I never got a response ever. How many emails? 50, 60 emails I've sent to these people, and they never responded. So this time I said, Foreigner, got it. You know what? I'm just going to go the extra mile here. I'm going to figure out who Foreigner's agents are, and I'm going to create an agency that sounds like them but is not them. And it was Paradigm, was their management company.
So you were Paradigm?
So I was paradigm-mgmt.com. I created an online persona with a New York cell phone number. One of my lawyer buddies in New York, I was like, I need to use your mailing address. I created, I did all these things, and this guy, Mike Walker, was... And I sent an email, and I created an email address and did everything, and I sent it to the guy at the Majestic Theater who had booked Foreigner and said, "Hey, we're at Paradigm MGMT." I never lied, and we represent Lucas Jack, and we'd love to put him on this upcoming show with Foreigner to help develop the market in San Antonio. Send, and I set it all up. It took me all morning to do all this dicking around. Boop, email comes right back. Sure. When can he do a walkthrough in the venue? And I was like, hold up. I'm calling everybody in the band, whatever you're doing, we're open for Foreigner. Do not freaking do anything on this day.
There.
It's in 4 weeks, and we have to be ready. And I responded and said, hey, this is Mike. Oh, I actually talked to him on the phone. This is Mike Walker. I'm just going to have Lucas reach out to you directly since he's in San Antonio. So then I go and meet with this guy who was a very nice guy who gave us the show. Walked through the venue. And then we showed up, and Foreigner put us on all of their posters and everything around town. It was completely badass. And then we played the show, and it was great. We really played really well,
Yeah.
and I also sneaked video cameras into the venue. You're not supposed to shoot video, but I just had everybody holding these cameras that
Full
are also.
frame, yeah.
I said they're all photographers because they were all photographers, but they were shooting video. And we set up cameras surreptitiously, and we recorded ourselves on this stage with Foreigner stuff in the background and 2,600 people cheering,
Which actually, it's a great video. I mean, it's got a lot of energy, and the song is phenomenal. It's one of my favorite songs by you guys.
Yeah, it's anyway. So we did that, and then I think they were pretty much on to us after the show.
Yeah.
I mean, we did. He said, "Hey, you did a great job," but I never heard from him again until a few years later. This guy who booked us shows up at a show of ours in Dallas or Fort Worth.
Fort Worth, yeah.
He
That's
comes
right.
up and he said, and I saw him there. I was like, oh my God, his name is Mike Riley.
He's a guy I
Very
lied
nice
to.
guy. He said, yeah, he said, I said, hey, sorry, about all that. That was kind of crazy. He's like, no, I couldn't have you back, but I appreciated the hustle. And I've been following you ever since, just trying to come to a show. We moved out of San Antonio, now live up here. And they drove like an hour to come to see me in Fort Worth, years after I had bamboozled my way into that event.
So the moral of the story is create your own fake booking agency.
Nice.
But if you do it, you got to do it right. You got to have a website, you got to have an address, and you got to have a phone number.
You got to have a buddy in New York with a mailing address.
I created the website, and it had a theme that said, only the best.
Only the best.
That was so stupid. But it worked.
I think I know another band that could use something like that. So, Noah, let me get notes taken. Notes.
The website just expired, by the way. I just got the notice from Google, like, do you want to renew?
See, I want
to renew? I was like,
Oh, I'd find a much better name than, I'd find some kind of like elbow grease, whatever. But, so you reached a point where, band's been playing together a couple years, but you reached a critical life point where you and your wife had started to have a family, and you needed to leave San Antonio, which had been a great market for you or a great place for you musically, and move ultimately to St. Louis. Talk a little bit about that and the impact it had on the band as well.
Sure. I moved to San Antonio with my wife, Julie. She was in the military, and she was done being in the military. She was getting out, going into private practice and looking for a job, and we had 2 little kids. They were just 15 months apart. And we didn't know anybody in San Antonio, like, other than the guys in my band and people she worked with. And we needed help with the kids, and she needed a job, and she got an offer. She did a residency here, and so she had a lot of connections with people in St. Louis, and she had a few offers of jobs here. And it was kind of a no-brainer. People in St. Louis always coming back to have families. Anyway, it's a great place to have a family, and so she got this great job here, and we moved here, and I thought, I don't know, what are we going to do? I've got this band, and how can I keep it together? St. Louis is a better place as far as being central. I never really hit my stride in Texas. It was kind of Texas is a great place to be a live music, but it's a lot better if you're kind of this gritty Texas country thing.
Sure, I know a band like that.
Yeah, it's better if you're doing that. And I thought the Midwest is probably a better fit for me musically, but I don't have a band here. So I moved up here, and
what was the conversation with these guys when you were moving here?
I mean, as soon as I found out that I was going to move,
this is over? I mean, was it, or is
no?
it?
I said I have to move. I've got to move. Let's try to keep this thing happening. When I moved here, I would go back to Texas every.
Right, you guys would go and you'd go 3 weeks down there.
Right, I do 2 or 3 weeks at a time every 2 months or something. And we kept it moving that way for a while. We would tour through the Midwest. Maybe they'd fly up here, and we'd start the mini tour here. And then 2020 happened, and the whole world stopped.
So I'm curious, looking back on it now, what was going through your mind when he's like, "Guys, I'm moving to St. Louis"? Was like, "We're done."
The funniest part was that.
You had just moved back.
I just joined the band like 7 months before, and he's like, I gotta go to St. Louis. He's like, I can't believe this. I have to find new musicians up there. And I was like, well, one of the things I did learn in Nashville is that you don't have to be in the same city to be in a band together. And I was like, we have to find a way to be able to, still play together, and whether that's us traveling up there, or you traveling back down to Texas, we can play up here, we can grow up there, and you can kind of network and find places for us to play. And it's like, we can still do this. It's just, it's going to be harder. But I think everybody, immediately was just like, yeah, let's try and figure this out.
100%.
So you guys felt like the connection the 3 of you had built was deep enough, strong enough, personally and musically, that it was worth the effort of trying to, deal with a 15-hour drive in between.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, just to get to the point where we were at that moment in time, it took, years of you and I playing duo together. We had been playing, 2.5, 3 years? I'm terrible with time. A long time. And then bringing Homie in.
It's funny, you're a drummer who's bad with time.
I'm bad with real world time.
Yeah.
I'm real good on this time, but bad with real, And it was just immediate. I think it was evident to all of us. We're like, okay, we have two choices. What happens in this situation with every other band, right? They either break up or they stay together, bottom line. So we're going to try to stay together because none of us are really, I mean, I wasn't interested in working with anybody in the Central Texas or San Antonio area. I mean, like this, I would do pickup side work. You know, I play out all the time, but I'm not trying to commit. Like, that's the big key word. I don't want to commit to another full-time project. And so we just decided to try to make it work. And we came up here. You had a first couple of trips, we had a setup in the basement that was like, it worked, but it was not great for recording. Then we had a space towards the city, and you got that all ready, and then like in a snap that went away, and slowly but surely things started to settle here in this space. And I'm super glad that, you know, we just kept going, and we all did what we had to do financially and whatever we needed to do with our schedule, with our families, to be away. We were away for like 10 to 14 days to be here because it didn't make any sense to come in for one weekend. We couldn't make enough money with the band, which we were barely making any money anyway, to justify the tickets, plane tickets and expenses. So we'd stay in, fly on a Wednesday, play that weekend, play the next weekend, fly out. And slowly but surely it ended up stabilizing. But it was never, I don't think, a doubt in any of our minds. Well, we were going to at least try it and go down, straight down in flames. Like, guys, it's not working. Like, none of us wanted to throw in the towel. Because I think we all really believe in the music. I mean, personally for me, these are the most meaningful and the most well-crafted songs I've ever just made out of nothing with friends. And it's because it's the hardest I've ever been able to work with a team. And, yeah, man, for that reason.
So you talked about the different places you would rehearse and record here. So let's talk about this phenomenal facility you've built here.
Deep Space Nine.
Deep Space so Nine. This is really kind of, to a degree, it's the product of what hath been wrought by COVID to some degree. Also, I mean, I imagine the nature that you're living in two different cities between San Antonio and St. Louis. But, we were talking about the significant investment you put into this. Talk a little bit just about this space and why it was necessary, and then how you're using this to build visibility for the band now.
Yeah. I always wanted a dream like studio to at my house. I wanted a studio to record music and like man cave music thing. And I always had this plan to turn this garage, this was my former garage, into a music studio, and we planned to do that in 2020. We started it in February 2020, and 3 weeks after they pulled the roof off of my old garage, the world stops with COVID. And so we stopped the construction. I was like, this is not a good time to be spending all this money. Maybe Julie won't have a job. I'm certainly not going to be playing any gigs. My kids aren't going to be in school. This is a mess. So we stopped the construction for like 3 or 4 weeks. Then, the whole world didn't completely die. So we started the construction back up again. And it happened all throughout 2020. They were building this music studio, and I didn't really know what I didn't have a plan to turn it into like a video studio. It was still a music studio. I had been having the guys come and like practice in the basement in this low ceiling. It sounded like absolute shit.
One cymbal could just destroyed
ruined every mic. It was just, anyway, it sounded so terrible, and it was really hard to sound so terrible in rehearsals with these guys. So we built this space, and in 2020, and nobody even came in it for a whole year. And I guess you guys came back up for the very first time
in
June this year, June 2021. And we set up a few cameras, and we decided to start doing live stream stuff. Because during the pandemic, I had been live streaming from my piano inside my house, not out here.
You were actually inside the piano. You were live streaming from
inside the piano, yes.
Yeah.
It's a giant piano.
The depths.
Yeah, the largest piano ever.
Yeah. So I had been dabbling with the live stream stuff, and I thought, well, maybe I could live stream from the studio. Maybe I could set up all these mics, and it slowly built into, I should just put cameras and lights all over this studio and create a place where we could live stream a show as a band. So it took a lot of figuring out how things work, because I don't know anything about cameras.
And it ironically should be noted that no one has said, I hate social media more than one Lucas Jack, so...
I do despise it. I don't use it. I think it's poison.
Mike is dragging him through.
Yeah, but it's become your principal medium now.
It is. It's unfortunate. It's like some teetotaler who thinks bars are evil, but also wants you to come to his show at the bar. You know?
Yeah.
I just don't use it. Interact with it, but it is a great way to reach people. Maybe I just have like an unhealthy relationship with it or something that other people can do it. I just don't. But yeah, we use YouTube and Facebook and Twitch, if you know what Twitch is.
Very familiar.
And Twitter, the vile pile that is Twitter. So I created this music studio, and we decided we can't really go out and play shows when they came back up a few months ago. So let's just get together every 5 weeks, 6 weeks, and put on a live stream show. And we've been doing that Tuesdays and Fridays. I've been doing it when they're not here solo, and when they are here, we do it as a full band for the last 8 months or 9 months, something like that.
As
And
a band, man, we've only been going for like 4 or 5.
This
yeah,
is like
the band. It's only been a few months.
yeah.
But anyway, yeah, so I'm thrilled with how this room sounds and how it looks, and I've been tweaking the lights and the mics and the preamps and the cabling and the staging and everything, building a drum riser, and doing all these things.
Yeah.
So this has become what we're doing. We're not playing out live because it's maybe we will soon. We really want to get back to it. It's still a freaking mess. Even our favorite bands are like, we're going on tour. Ooh, never mind. We're not going on tour.
I mean,
I think we might. No, we're still not. It's like, ugh.
I had tickets to 2 shows in San Antonio, got canceled, rescheduled, and it's just like, why? I mean, you just have to supply chain. I don't know. Why is this show canceled?
They ran out of chips.
It's a massive venue with a famous band, so it's still weird to tour.
So this has become our game plan. This room and the live streaming stuff, and it's also we're hoping that it will get the attraction of like some label support. They'll say, we're at 90 miles per hour. We've got it all ready to go. We have a van. We have a setup. We can do live streaming. We're set up for the pandemic. We're set up for like.
We sound like this live. This is how we play.
You know what? I was so thrilled to build a room where we push record and we listen back and like, shit, man, that sounds really good. That's actually really good. Like the songs we're playing for you today. It's I'm just thrilled to have it sound the way that it does and look the way that it does. So.
Well, so before we get out of here, guys, let's talk about the one question that I always get after we play out my band, and that is where people can find you. You've got 2 full-length albums, 2 EPs, a couple singles that are on anywhere you get your music, right?
That's right, everywhere.
Spotify, iTunes, High Times Magazine, wherever you like to find your music, right?
Absolutely, everywhere you can find it, from like SoundCloud and Google Play, Pandora, all those things. Start a Pandora station today.
All right, guys, this has been great. Bert and Ernie, Lucas Jack. We've been talking to the Lucas Jack Band. We are the Loadout Music Podcast presented by Shinesty and Wellbeing Brewing. We've been coming to you from Lucas Jack's home studio. It's been great to hear from you guys, and we are going to go out with yet another song called Josephine.
Yep.
Thanks, guys.
I've been waiting for your call through the kitchen and down the long hallway. I'm always for you. Mama's sleeping, I never can. I just tiptoe around your toys till 2 a.m. strikes. just hold you tightly while you're drifting back to sleep. I treasure every little moment like this one that I can't keep. When you're in my arms, oh, you're wrapped around my heart. And you can always count on me, just so you know you're gonna always be my baby, Josephine. Oh, my Josephine.
Hey folks, if you made it this far, and judging by our numbers you haven't, thanks for listening to the Loadout Music Podcast. You can always find us at loadoutmusic.com and wherever you like to get your podcasts like iTunes or SoundCloud. And of course, as always, thanks to Gaslight Studios for hosting us. Have a good one.